Earlier in this course, we quickly popped out some SharePoint team sites, but now that we've had time to explore some of the other features of SharePoint Online, I'd like to return to that list so that we can see the other templates that are available, because not every SharePoint site should be a team site. If I go to Site Content wherever I wish to create a site and click New Subsite, when I choose to add the subsite, I have a place to add a title and a description as well as a URL. Choose a language and then choose a template. And again, we've been creating team sites, but we could also be creating project sites. Project sites have a different set of web parts than team sites, and project sites are optimized to be able to create successful outcomes for a project. Perhaps your team has something to communicate to your partners, internal or external, and you'd like to get their feedback. A great way to do that is with a blog, using social media to reach out to your colleagues, to other people in your enterprise, to partners, and to customers. A community site is a social site within SharePoint. You'd create this type of a site as a place where people could discuss issues that were not necessarily work-related. If you find, for example, that there's a lot of conversation in news feeds about people's hobbies, their hikes, and so on, you might want to create a community site so people have yet another place to be social. If I click the Enterprise tab, I have access to some centers and repositories. You'll use a document center site if you need to manage large numbers of documents. You can use the document center site as the place where you're going to allow people to interact with documents. For example, a place where you would author new content. Or you can use it as a place where you really have published documents that people are looking at. A third possibility is that you have a lot of documents. You don't necessarily want them commingled with the documents in your site now because they're older documents, but you need to retain them. And in that case, you would have a choice to create a document center to use as an archive for your legacy content. And if you create a document center for that purpose, then users will no longer be allowed to create new documents to author them there, but they would be able to view them. This is a way that Microsoft sets up their knowledge base, is with something very similar to a document center. When we think about records, records are not simply rows in a table somewhere. Records here is meant in a very technical sense because records are documents that need to be managed and retained. Think about legal documents and financial documents because those are documents that we would refer to as records. When you have a record center, you have excellent support for managing your records from the time that you are creating them or uploading them all the way through to the end of their life when they are being deleted. Because these are the type of documents that would often be involved in e-discovery, record centers also support the e-discovery features that we saw when we were looking at protection and compliance. You'll create a business intelligence center because you would like to be able to share business reports and dashboards. There are characteristics to a BI center that are different than anything else. Specific web parts and support for services that are used to present business intelligence information in the enterprise. This is not to be confused with the new Microsoft Power BI Pro and Power BI Services. Power BI services are also web-based. They are accessible and available, but they are not part of a business intelligence center. This is something more structured, and at some point I suspect we're going to see more business intelligence of the Power BI type and probably less of the structured business intelligence centers. You've already seen search centers. We saw the basic search center for our site that is connected to the results page. And remember that every SharePoint Online site has a built-in search center. Both the Enterprise and the Basic Search Center use the same verticals and the same web parts. Finally, we have a place to store and view Visio process diagrams. So we have a document library that's all set up for use with Visio in the enterprise. Under Duet Enterprise, I have the ability to create a SAP workflow site for business tasks. And then custom didn't exist until we saved a site as a template so that we could reuse it. But every time we create a site of our own and save it for reuse, this is where it will go. There are some other sites that you may see as well, enterprise wiki sites, publishing sites, and so on. The specific site templates that are available to you in SharePoint Online depend first on what Office 365 plan you have for SharePoint. They depend also on whether you are working with a site or a site collection. And finally, they depend on what has been set up by your SharePoint administrator. Of all the sites that we have not yet worked with, the template for project sites under collaboration is the most frequently used. We'll look at it in the next movie.